What up, Doe? We're back. January 18th edition of whatever we call this. I'm Tom Clos at Twitter, on Twitter at Classy Hawkeye. You can see that in the lower right-hand corner right there. Up in the upper right or left-hand corner of your screen, I'm not sure. Right there. Follow us on Facebook, Iowa Sports Review, Twitter at IA Sports Review. And if you're on YouTube, please hit subscribe at the bottom there, below the video. I'm not sure if it's on the left or the right. Because basketball season's heating up, as we're about to get into in a second, and some weird stuff with the Kirk Ferentz letter fighting with the Gazette. First, I just wanted to open real quick with, I just saw, this must have just come down the pike, or maybe I missed it earlier. Women's basketball, Iowa women's basketball postponed again for COVID. And they dealt with COVID earlier in the season, but I mean, they're just running into teams that all of a sudden they're just getting COVID. It's almost as if this is planned, and it's been brutal. This team is so talented, and it's just taken the wind out of the season. Now they're 10-4, 4-1 in the Big Ten. I mean, well within reach of everything, with arguably the nation's best player on the roster, Caitlin Clark. But it's just so disappointing. I was watching them the other day. It must have been yesterday when they, or it might have been 2 days ago when they beat Nebraska at Carver. They're a fun watch. They came back. Nebraska was up big in that game. Came back and won that. They swept Nebraska, who's pretty good this year. And it's disappointing to see. Just again, now it was a big showdown with number 6 Indiana, and that's postponed. And Michigan State, they had a game against Michigan State postponed. That's 3 in the Big Ten, on top of what they were dealing with earlier. And Indiana's number 6 right now, and coming off of a dramatic win at Purdue. I caught the end of that game, which was weird too. I've never watched so much women's basketball in a weekend, I don't think, but the Iowa women will get you to watch. I absolutely love watching them, and it's gotten me interested in the rest of the Big Ten. So it's just disappointing. I'm disappointed because they really looked like they were. I mean, Caitlin Clark dropping triple doubles is nothing new, but just looked like they're hitting their stride, and it's a shame. It's just such a dumb thing. This Kirk Ferentz letter to the parents that he's dissolving the diversity coalition or whatever the heck it's called, and the Gazette waiting to run this article until Ferentz gets an extension, then they run it in a gotcha moment, and then it turns out they misreported it. It's incredible how this is just spiraled, and now the Gazette is doubling down, but we have all the evidence that what they put out there in that initial article, it was not really valid. Like, it was a bit of a stretch. Cliff notes, in case you don't know what I'm talking about. The Gazette, Cedar Rapids Gazette, ran an article, I don't know, it feels like about a year ago now, but it was earlier this week or a couple days ago, right after Ferentz's extension was announced. He's extended through like 2029. He'll be here forever. But I'll get to the extension in a minute. But the Gazette announced that Kirk Ferentz, upon the suggestion that he be replaced by this committee of former players, it was established in conjunction with the issues they had stemming from the Chris Doyle incidents in 2020. Ferentz actually established this himself, to just help learn more about how to have a more diverse, operation and some activities that coaches could do, yada, yada, yada. Well, it was the Gazette ran a story saying that he's just decided to dissolve it once the committee thought maybe that he should be replaced. So that didn't look good. Then Kirk comes out with it wasn't even a statement. It was a letter sent to Hawkeye parents, essentially saying that they're retooling it, and he was never dissolving it. He's just going to retool the committee with younger players. And then the actual letter was released by the Gazette, corroborating what Kirk said and showing that he wasn't going to dissolve. And it's just like, look, there was some misreporting being done, and I think the Gazette, like a lot of, I don't want to get into a media discussion, but this is not, I went to journalism school. Like, this is kind of how a lot of this works. So it's not shocking to see that, but it's like, I just never understood media operations or media outlets not willing to just say, okay, we stretched it a little, or we made a mistake, or, and they're just doubling down. And now a tweet earlier today from Vanessa Miller where I guess they rewrote the story, or they wrote a new story. In a letter this week to Hawkeye parents, Ferentz reframed his decision to dissolve an alumni diversity committee. In Ferentz's new message, he, for the first time publicly, aired intentions the group now include views of recent play. And it's just like, the first mistake was being on Twitter, but you look further in those comments and it's devolved into a lot of, you better get a PR person, which I think that's uncalled for too, but there has to be some responsibility. I don't know. I just want the story to end. It seems like everything's fine. And, the comment right there, why do we have to have all the drama? It seems all the time, it seems. Why do we have to have drama all the time, it seems? And it's so true. I don't... If it's not this, it's that. They actually, it's funny because they came out with the Ferentz extension, and not to cause drama, but it made me pause for a second because we were kind of in this limbo of, is he going to retire? Is he not? Well, apparently it came out. So I wasn't a huge fan of it with like 3 years left on I think his deal runs through 2025. But there was no debate once I learned that he had told players he's going to be around for a long time, and he's been telling recruits that. So if he's going to be here through most of this contract, of course, extend him. And so I thought it was and it was pretty much lauded. They just won the West, 10 games, all the good stuff. Recruiting's on their way up. It seems like this team's going to be really good next year and the year after that. And then more drama with this story that it just feels like the Gazette was waiting for an extension that they knew was coming, that announcement to drop this, and it's just more gotcha. And I don't know, this like gotcha journalism, or we're gonna like take a quote and stretch it and bend it into a story. It's old hat, but it's exhausting. It really is exhausting. And it becomes, now this is stretched into like a 3-day thing when, in Kirk's defense, his original letter said what he's been saying. So I don't know why the Gazette just doesn't print a retraction or apologize or clarify what they were trying to go for. And there's just none of that. And it's become a pissing contest, and it's exhausting. So I hope the story just goes away soon. I don't really care about it a lot. I have nothing to do with the diversity committee. That's an in-house thing. That's a good point by Hayden. Yeah, it's never good drama either. Like getting a transfer quarterback. That's so true. It's an in-house thing, and it feels like it's all conducted with good intentions. And I think this is just from players. This is from people around the program that I think we would hear more. I think Kirk's done a pretty damn good job of cleaning all of that up. And they got rid of Doyle immediately. And yes, other people could be moved on from Bryant, but I think he's done a really good job. This team seems very close, across all races. There doesn't seem to be that issue anymore in the locker room from what we see. So at least, so I don't know. I hope it was a committee done with good intentions, and the Gazette made a big mistake, and just apologize and let's move on. And yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Maybe on MLK Day, you never know. God, I didn't even put that together. As bad as reporting was, yeah, the fan base didn't buy it. And that's, I think that's a culmination of, look, rightly so. I think we're all pretty cynical nowadays, just in terms of someone being absolutely wonderful or someone being the devil. I think the truth's always in the middle. Actually, in this instance, the truth wasn't in the middle. Ferentz was kind of forthright in his letter and what he said. So the fan base never really did buy into it. I think part of the problem too was there was a lot of like that article. Like, how does the letter not come out? How is the letter not attached to the article? Like the Gazette gets the letter and then interprets it in their own spin. They didn't publish the letter as well, and it wasn't until the Ferentz letter to the parents came out that the real letter came out. And it's just, I don't, they have to be better than that. And I understand it's juicy. It's a juicy headline. It wouldn't be a juicier. It's a much juicier headline than he's going to retool the committee with younger players, because I think that's perfectly fine. And I will say immediately when that first story came out, before we even had any evidence that Kirk didn't say that or anything, former players, Jordan Lomax, the big one, came out. Current players came out, and so it just felt like, I think once they wrote the story, but we just kept hearing about a letter, but never saw the letter. It didn't feel like it was real, or it felt like there was something else to it. And it turns out it just wasn't true. So what is this? It's Tuesday. I'm hoping after Iowa hopefully beats Rutgers tomorrow, by Saturday, I'll be in Iowa City for the Penn State game, pending another blizzard, but I don't think it's supposed to snow here. Hopefully by Saturday when I get to Iowa City, it's just a dead issue. I think it's done. Or maybe people will boycott because I don't know. I don't live in Eastern Iowa, so I guess people can do what they want. But it's just bad reporting, and it's irresponsible to stretch out. And look, I get it. I was a journalism student. I wrote nothing big. I wrote for the Daily Iowan, but like, you get a quote and you want so badly as a journalist to like just stretch it and bend it and fit it into a narrative. And the problem is, this isn't a post-game story about a guy, going for 20 and 10. This is the coach just got an extension and is using his authority to squash a diversity group. And that's irresponsible. So I just hope the Gazette does the right thing. I have no hope. I mean, I hope they do it. I have no confidence in that happening because, you've seen it throughout history. Media outlets still get sued for slander and libel, and they'll never admit wrongdoing. That's just how it works in this country. So yeah, I hope it's just a couple comments here. It does bother me Kirk Ferentz insists on doing all these things in private. That could have been an opportunity to show how much work the committee has done. Yeah, no, I think that's valid. I think that's a valid comment too. And look, Kirk's not perfect, obviously, because there's a reason why he went through a lot of things last offseason and establishing this committee and all of that. So this isn't. I think that's a very valid point. A little more transparency would be cool. I don't know how much it ties into this situation where the Gazette is just saying things that really aren't true. But no, I think and look, that was an issue. The lack of transparency was an issue that culminated with the whole Chris Doyle thing and players' dress codes and people not on Twitter and all of that too. And people keeping their mouths shut, not being able to speak out. And so, yeah, I think the program can evolve in a lot of ways just outside of their archaic offense. You just see other programs do it a little differently. And I'm not saying Kirk has to get on Twitter and stuff, but it would be nice. I will say I was a little in the Gazette's first article, which I think the rest of it was accurate. I don't even know, but it was a little weird when they were talking about how the coaches wouldn't give much time for the committee, and they asked them to just come up with one thing, and they couldn't. The coaches didn't really participate and couldn't do it. That stuff has to be better. I don't think it's a huge deal as long as the committee feels like stuff's getting done. I mean, that's all we can trust. Again, this is all close. This is all behind doors stuff we'll never be a part of, and we just have to kind of blindly hope is working for the players. And I mean, I think the good news is with now with the openness and people can be on social media and that there is a microscope in a sense under this program a bit. I just figure that stuff's going well because I think we would have heard about a lot more now. There was an independent investigation, and it's been a year and a half ish, over a year and a half since all the allegations, and that a lot were true against Chris Doyle and what was going on in that building. I can only, because it is in the building, so to say, we can only kind of just hope that it's all working out. And it does feel like there would have been a lot more to this story if this committee was useless and if they were being minimized completely. And it just feels like that. I don't think anyone's afraid to really speak out now. There's too much there's too much toothpaste out of the tube. I mean, you can come out and criticize the program now, and if it's corroborated, I think that's fine. This is not it doesn't feel like a Joe Paterno situation where he's running the state or anything. No, and this is good on the players who started with good intentions, started getting the changes going. I think people can speak out now, and they have social media and all of that. Because that is expensive fish wrap. Yeah, it's media is crazy nowadays. It's almost like a story like this seems like there's a lot of work put into, and there's interviews and letters, and it just turns out to be a lot of nothing and stretched, and it's just disappointing. But all right, let's move on. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I hope by the time I get in next week, this is not a story still. Oh yeah, just saw the new tweet. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, check out the new tweet from Vanessa Miller. It's a doozy. Unless it's a new one. No, that's the one. Yeah. And then see here now, I'm caught up in it. All right, Hayden kept me caught up in it. Then there was this weird moment yesterday where Chad Leistica released the parent letter, and then Vanessa Miller came back with a response. This is all on Twitter, saying, here's our letter. And then Chad went back at her saying, okay, well, what's in your letter is what's in my letter, and what you wrote was not what you wrote. And then the Gazette went dark, and then the Gazette's editor came up. No, it's all good. I guess I had this, it's brewing in my head. Then the Gazette's editor got on Twitter. You can find it, and was defending it, which was bizarre. This whole thing is just, it's insane. Like, and now we're past. It's so funny because now Kirk Ferentz, it feels like is just vindicated, and is just not even in the. It's like I don't even almost remember his part of the story. Like now it's just all about the Gazette, and people are calling for the university to pull their credentials, which would just be a terrible look. So don't do it. You're just asking for issues, and in the U.S. you can't pull credentials. You just can't do it. But it is no wonder papers are dying. I mean, can you imagine? And I didn't look. I'm sure people pay for the story. I actually do pay for the Register, only for the Iowa coverage. Really, I think Chad does a great job. Chad and Kenny is the other guy now. They do a great job, but I can't imagine like paying for a paper and then however much it is, like in real, and then getting that and being like, oh my God, see the story, and then it's completely like. No wonder they're dying, honestly. And Vanessa Miller has been there a while. I'm just surprised. I'm surprised they had two journalists co-sign that. They have an editor that's defending it. When we're looking at the letter, when there's no tangible evidence, and there's just no accountability, there's no apology, there's no our bad, there's nothing. Now they go dark, and then they just write a new article corroborating what was actually said. It's very, very strange. It's very bizarre. It's made the story just drag out. It's made, it's no wonder people hate the media in this country. It's no wonder people don't trust the media. Which I'm not one who just flat out hates the media, because I think the media does a lot of good too. But I get it. I get why people don't trust the media. I get, look, this COVID stuff, there's a lot of good information that gets clouded with fear mongering. And, I've yet to see, I mean, I swear in the almost 2 years of COVID, I've seen about 2 positive articles. And that was probably, we have a vaccine. And not that COVID's positive, but like, it's like you got to hold a journalist under fire, like a flame, burn them until they'll admit that like COVID cases are going down in the state or something. Everything's always going up and everyone's always on a ventilator and dying. And so I get it. I understand. And it's very frustrating. And you just have to pick and choose what you read. If you even read the news, a lot of people just don't even read the news anymore. And that's a shame, but I get it. I completely understand because of stuff like this. Because when I saw the headline, it was like, oh, this is a disaster. But the way it's framed, it's a disaster, but it's juicy. I got to read this. I remember it was sitting on my page. I think it was the day, Iowa was playing Minnesota, and I was like, I can't wait for this game to end because I got to read this. And then it was like, I read it, and it's like, oh my god, like how does he explain this? And it's completely not true. So very frustrating for yourselves, definitely. But I digress. All right. Speaking of Iowa, Minnesota, I was in the United Arab Emirates last week with the university's MBA program. So I actually didn't catch the Indiana game. The last I saw was the Wisconsin loss in Madison. They were outclassed. It was every Iowa at Wisconsin game I've ever seen. Not as of late. They've actually played Wisconsin pretty well. They beat them 3 times last year, but that game sucked. It was awful. It wasn't a fun watch. I missed last week. I missed the Indiana game. Went back and watched it on delay. And, it's so funny because I watched this team and thinking back in the beginning of the season, I remember saying on the show that this is going to be a team that will go in and they'll like win at Illinois. And then they'll drop a home game to Penn State. And then they'll go and they'll lose by 2 at Michigan State. And then they'll come home and, they could lose to Northwestern. And then they'll go and they'll blast Ohio State. And then they'll drop an inexplicable game against Nebraska or something. It feels like that's sort of what this team has been. Now, I will say this. Seeing games like against Indiana and really the Minnesota game. I mean, against Indiana, Keegan Murray just wasn't bad. I mean, I don't think he's been bad outside of maybe the Iowa State game where he couldn't hit anything. But, boy, they needed something else. Down 7 at the half, needed some juice, and Chris Murray goes 12 of 18, hits a couple threes, game high 29 minutes. Goes for 29 and 11. I mean, and those are the things that when you see games like that and they come back and Indiana is probably a bubble team. I'm going to guess they're going to get in the tournament. It seems like the Big Ten's it'll be like Indiana will get in maybe in like that first 4 or like a 10-11 seed. That's a really good spot for Chris Murray to really come out and just show that if this team is more than Keegan Murray, and I think the Minnesota game on Sunday showed you this too. If they can get more out of this team than just Keegan, because Keegan can drop 35 on anyone, it seems. Like if he wants, if he's on, he can outscore probably anyone. It's just who else? And all year, it's sort of been this, Keegan goes for 35, and then someone else just kind of goes for 10. Well, can somebody else pick up that slack consistently? And, now, of course, Chris, what does he do against Minnesota? Did he even play? Yeah, he 5 points in 11 minutes. So it's just like, I think that's just going to be the recipe here for this team. And are they, I think it's a tournament team. We knew Keegan Murray was this good. I was very worried about the rest of the players. Absolutely. The bench, the other starting 4. I didn't know what Rebracha was. Again, I saw him in person for the first time. I swear the guy shrunk. Didn't know what you're gonna get from Jabo and McCaffrey, and I mean, any of the other guys, Perkins, you just don't know. And I've been pleasantly surprised. And this looks like a team that is clearly in that top 6, 7 in the Big Ten. It's interesting. I'm looking at the Big Ten standings, and for all of the, we talk about how the Big Ten's such a good conference, and it is. I mean, it's going to put in, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, probably 7 teams in the NCAA tournament. So half the league will probably get in. I mean, the ACC is going to get 4 at most, I think. I'm not sure which 4 after Duke, but it's interesting because with the Big Ten, for all of the depth and it feels like all these teams are really good. A lot of these teams are really good and stuff. I think 3 of them, maybe 4. All right, I guess 4 of them could win the league. There's, let's see, Nebraska, Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern. There's 5 at least that have no shot of making the tournament. And then there's 1 that probably won't, Michigan. So there is, for as deep as this league always is, there always seems to be like those dividing lines, like clear. Like it's clear to me this Iowa team's not going to win the Big Ten. I don't think so. Could they? Either 3-3, they're 2 games out. They could. I don't see it. Indiana's not winning the Big Ten. But I do think those 2 teams are going to be in the tournament. I think Iowa, especially with the soft bubble, will be well into the tournament. As Joe Lunardi just projected them as a 7. That's well in. And that would be, if they're in the first 4 and does that even count though? I don't know. But if they can if they get the round of 64, the season's a success. I don't care what anyone's hoping, and we all want them to go to the Final Four and all that, but it's a success. It was make the tournament this year. Just keep making the tournament in your seeming down years. And this would be one of those where you lost all that talent. Keegan's still around. Thank you. Just make the tournament. And so it's clear to me that, if we separating the tiers, like who can win the Big Ten? Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Purdue. I think that's it. Ohio State is a game out. I don't think so. I think they're that step lower. Not a big step. I think they're a step lower. And then you could even hit another step. And then you got Iowa and then maybe Indiana. But I think it's clear, though, that this is a top 6 team in the Big Ten. 100%. They play Rutgers, who isn't a tournament team right now. They're 4-2 in the Big Ten, but Iowa's better than them. And should win the game at Rutgers. It's never easy. If they lost the game again, it wouldn't surprise me. This is the Big Ten. Purdue went there and got beat on an incredible buzzer beater. But this is a team that has really been, they've really surprised me, because I think the ceiling is just a notch higher than we thought. Now, everything has to go right. Like everything. I thought coming into the season, I thought this team was going to be a lot of Keegan Murray. I hold on to your hat, like around that 8, 9, 10 spot in the Big Ten. Hold on to your hat on Selection Sunday. Close, but can they just get over the hump? But it's just going to be a lot of Keegs, and can anyone else give them anything? And I think it's been better than that. Rebracha's there, it seems like every game, and a rotation of 1 to 3 guys on the bench will be there every game. Patrick McCaffrey will go off at some point, or Chris Murray will have a big game. And now that being said, if Keegs goes down or something, a lot of teams, their best player goes down, they're screwed. If Keegs went down, this team probably won't make the tournament. But in their current form, I really like what I'm seeing. And it's really, I think the great thing about this season is, after this season, Keegan Murray should go pro. And if he does, a lot of guys are playing. I mean, they're playing a lot of guys. Peyton Sanford's getting good time, and Chris Murray is going to be called upon next year to carry a lot of the load, and the Ulysses and the Perkins. Now somebody leave. I'm sure somebody will transfer, whatever. But they're a fun watch too. They're a lot of fun. Defensively, struggles. They're not perfect. Defensively, they struggle, of course, under McCaffrey. newsflash, they're never good at defensively under McCaffrey. This is one of those seasons, though, that last year I thought defense really held them back to having maybe a Final Four run, that guard play. This year, they just kind of are what they are. Scott Van Pelt had a great tweet after Iowa held on against Minnesota, because Iowa blew that big lead. They're up 23, and they stopped playing for the last 10 minutes of the game and held on. And he said it was something along the lines of Iowa has got to be the number one team in when they're up 10 late. You have no confidence in them holding the lead, but when they're down 10 late, you have all the confidence in them coming back. And it's so true. Like, yeah, I never feel safe with this team unless they're playing a mid-major and they're up 30. But they were up 23 in that game, and I was just pushing the clock towards the 5-minute mark. Gets under 5 minutes, you're up 23, you're in pretty good shape. But hell, I was at a game against Nebraska, I think it was 2 years ago, at Nebraska. I don't know if anyone remembers this. It was the last game of the regular season, where they blew it was like an 11-point lead in the last 40 seconds or something and lost in overtime. That was insane. Indiana was a nice comeback. I went to that game. Minnie was complete opposite in Indiana, but still somehow won. It was, yeah. Look, that was, I'll never, and most Iowa fans I think agree, because I saw this online. You can never complain about, one, a win at the barn, but two, a road win in the Big Ten. I mean, tomorrow it's Rutgers. I get it. Just win. And really in the Big Ten, just win. Okay, if they're playing Nebraska at home and they need a buzzer beater, that's a little alarming. But Michigan State, loses to Northwestern at home, and Purdue goes and loses to Rutgers. I think Ohio State needed overtime to beat Nebraska. So there's nothing easy in this conference. We all know this. Excuse me. Wow. We all know this. There's nothing easy in this conference. Road games, forget it. I mean, you'll never, ever find an easy road game. That first half, the first 30 minutes of that game was about as easy as it gets on the road in the Big Ten. And Minnesota still almost won the game coming back. So I think that game Sunday, what I took away from it was not disappointing that they let them back in. I think it was disappointing because it just felt like Iowa didn't have any clue what they were doing in the last 10 minutes. And it felt like they were watching the clock wind down. They would get in these possessions, and it reminded me of the old four corners offense when there was no shot clock, where they would just pass the ball. Like they're just standing there for 30 seconds and then heave up a shot that no chance. Then Minnesota was raining threes. It felt like they were going to lose that game late. It was spiraling. I mean, I'm sitting there at my TV screaming. They had a possession. It was when Keegan hit the desperation three. Tony Perkins, they had no idea what to do on offense. Tony Perkins is sitting there dribbling the clock, and I'm screaming, just get it to 15. Just get it to 15. And he hit a rainbow three, blocked a shot on the other end, and the rest is history. That's something, though, that I think this team, Fran has to get in their heads. He has to instill it in this team's heads. And I get it. It's a team sport, blah, 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 blah. You have the nation's top scorer, I think he is still, maybe not, in crunch time, when they're bleeding, when they're circling the drain and Minnesota's on the verge of creating, it got down to 3, this incredible comeback, get the ball to 15. I don't know what set, they weren't running sets. They were running run the clock, just standing there. And why does Tony Perkins have the ball late in the game? Keegan should be taking it. He should have it every single time. I can live with him missing that rainbow three than most of these players taking wide open threes. So I think that has to be a thing, because that is something that in a tournament situation, whether it be the Big Ten tournament, NCAA tournament, guys like him can win you games. And that's, it's funny because this team, not even close to the talent of last year. But with Keegan Murray, I think you can unlock perhaps a deeper run than they had last year, because he's a guy that, Luka was very stationary. Yeah, he could step back and hit threes, but he couldn't really move a lot. He can move on the block, but Keegan can go coast to coast. He can do a lot. This team's pretty fast. They feel faster than last year. Just running up and down the floor. Thank you, Joe T. And they just have just a smaller lineup. And I think it's better suited for the NCAA tournament in a lot of ways. Besides just last year, they had a lot more talent. It felt like they had a couple NBA players. So I think when you see this team in crunch time down the stretch, and heck, we know, look, you joke about the Fran fade or whatever. It's going to be a slog. It always is, that last month, really from here on out, but that last month of the season through March Madness is always a slog. And when you're blowing leads and when you need a big basket, they have to get the ball to Keegan Murray. I cannot see. It was easier last year because you had a lot of shooters. You had Frederick, you had Wieskamp, who could all take that big shot. You had Garza still, but like, I don't know if I need one last shot, if I'm just going to automatically dump it to Luka with all those guys. On this team, last shot, get it to 15. And that has to be the mantra. If they go out of the NCAA tournament and he's taking the last shot and he misses, I can live with it. I can't have Joe Toussaint taking a three. I can't have Peyton Sandfort all of a sudden standing there with the ball. I can't have Tony Perkins dribbling the clock out at the top of the key. And finally Keegan ran over and just took it from him. Perkins just handed it to him and Keegan drains a three. So that is something to watch for, because a lot of times these coaches like to get cute. They just don't get the guy the ball. I think that's the difference in a lot of respects with the NBA and college. It's still very team oriented, which is fine, but in crunch time, just get your guys the ball. LeBron's always going to get the ball at the end. Get it to your LeBron. This is an interesting comment. I think many people, me included, have no idea why Joe T doesn't get to close out games. Really weird he wasn't put in. I've been trying to figure that out for a year or two. I don't know. Now, ironically, last year, he kind of buckled under the pressure against Minnesota. That Christmas Day collapse they had. He missed 2 free throws, and then Minnesota came down and hit a shot at the end. But I don't know. I think the problem there is he's just – now, the thing I would like about it is he can get to the rack. He has the speed. He can go up and down. But, him in a half-court set, I just think ball handling-wise – and look, this is the beauty of Joe T. He takes some chances with his passing. His passing is spectacular on the most part. But he can take some chances in passing. I think when you get into a half-court set, he loses a little bit of his value because, God, I love watching him on the break and him just going coast to coast, or him, 2-on-1, or I think that's when he's in his money situation. But in a half-court set, you need a basket. I kind of get it. I get what Fran's doing. You have Perkins in there, pretty good ball handler. Perkins probably won't take a lot of chances, but he'll make the pass. That's interesting, and that's something to watch. And I think the other problem is, Joe T, for as good as and for everything he flashes and for as good as he is a lot of times, I mean, what's he? He's not particularly offensively gifted. He can get to the rack, but I mean, he's not lighting up the world with his shooting, and he's shooting under 50% on the year, averaging about 5 a game. So I think he's better on the run and when they're running their normal offense, when they get in that half court set. And look, this is another issue with this team. And I think it's just how it is, because this is a team that likes to run with Fran and stuff, that when they're forced to play a slowed down game, it's no wonder why they kind of collapse and they don't know what to do, because now they're out of their element and they're just playing that half court set all the time. And they're, now maybe you're looking at the clock and you can't really get a good shot. And look, that being said, I don't want them to keep running up and down the floor if they're trying to hold on to a win either. So it's a fine line. It's an interesting thought. I think the problem is, again, not a very good free throw shooter, not a great shooter at all. Just better on the run. I do wonder though if maybe Fran, if it's more he just doesn't trust him with the ball just because of the chances he takes. I'm not sure. That's an interesting point. And watch, I'm sure tomorrow he'll have the ball late in the game. He'll be in the game, and then we'll have to speculate after that too. Offensive line, it's really easy to sub in end game situations. Yeah, that is so. The Jabo thing is interesting because he's an absolutely invaluable with the free throws, and this is this is the best free throw shooting team in the Big Ten, or they take the most free throws in the Big Ten. They've always taken 1 million free throws. It is amazing to me, and maybe it's because I'm a fan and I'm too close to it, and I'm so over the top with what I think I'm seeing and stuff, but it feels like they've missed a lot more free throws than they do. They're a pretty damn good free throw shooting team, it turns out. And a lot of it has to do with Jordan Bohannon, just having that, and it's invaluable. At the end of games, having that. I'm looking at the stats. He's missed 6 all year. He's taken 47 of them. How about Tony Perkins? 32 for 35 from the line. That's pretty good. Toussaint's only missed 2 all year. He's only taken 12. But, I mean, this is a really good free throw shooting team. And at times, I think because we just focus in on the misses. But so I don't know if with Bohannon, look, it's invaluable because he's a career like 98% shooter or something from the line. So it's great having that at the end of the games. But I wonder, because the rest of the team is still really good at free throws too, and yeah, you want him at the end of the games, but like, where does he fit on this roster? I'm still a little confused because, boy, there's some games where they just go to him and he's just launching and he's Splash Brother, like he's draining everything. And then there's a weird game against Indiana where he goes for 11 on 6 free throws, but miss it. He goes 2 for 11, but he plays a game high 29 minutes. And then you turn to Minnesota. He plays 30 more, doesn't really shoot the ball well, still has 12 points. And what do you shoot? 3 for 11. And so I wonder, like, and maybe it's just the veteran presence, and it's always good to have a shooter there. But if he's not hitting a shot, I don't know how much he should be out there. Now, I'll credit Bohannon, at least these last 2 games, and looking at his splits. He didn't shoot the ball well. Let's see, he went for, all right, I mean, that's 4 of the last 5. He's at double figures and hasn't really shot the ball well. He was pretty good at Wisconsin, shot 50%, but he shoots 18% against Indiana, but he's getting to the line. And so if he's not hitting shots and he's getting to the line, then I guess it's fine. I just, I fear that they might start to turn to him late in the year. And if he's not really hitting his shots anymore, can he really get to the line much? I've never trusted him to get to the rack. And so I'm still trying to figure out, like, for instance, is he in the game late? No. I saw Tony Perkins, and we want Toussaint sometimes, but we don't really want Bohannon. We just want him to come in if they have a lead and need free throws. So I don't, is there a better option there? I don't know. I don't know. What are we, 17 games into the season? And I'm still trying to figure out where he's fitting in the rotation. Now, it always helps to have shooters, and he can shoot. He's got to pick up the 3-point pace. If he can hit threes like he has his whole career, if he can go back to that, and you combine that with the Keegan Murray, 25 a night, and then Rabracha goes for double against Minnesota, or if it's Chris Murray going for 29, this team can really do some damage and really could have a shot. I mean, heck, you get into the tournament, if they play really well down the stretch, who's to say 6th seed? And then you could get to the second weekend of the tournament. I mean, as a 6th seed, definitely. The beauty is you're going to have the best player on the floor almost every night the rest of the season. You'd be hard pressed to find a better player right now than Keegan Murray. So I think there's a lot of, and it's funny because 17 games in, we still don't know with Bohannon. At least I don't. So I think there's just a lot there to work with. And I think Fran's done a really good job of fitting this together. Last year it was so really cut and dry. It was like, okay, this is a rotation, like you could see it, and and then Keegan just bursted on the scene. But you had the rotation down, you had this, and I've been trying to track a lot of the subs this year for Iowa, and I've been like, I don't know when Sanford comes in, and he came in for a minute against Indiana. And then I know they were up big against Minnesota, but you're not going to really sit on a game, So then he came in and he got a couple minutes against Minnesota. And then Jabo will disappear at times, and then he'll score, or he'll play for 30 minutes. And, Chris Murray goes off, and then he plays 11 minutes yesterday. So and Fran's done a really good job of feeling that mix and finding that mix, and it's worked. And they're 13-4 and 3-3 in the conference, and they're beating teams. Most importantly, they don't have a bad loss. They've beaten every team that they should have beaten. They have beaten this year. I can't think of one game of the 4 losses: Wisconsin, Iowa State, Purdue, and Illinois. Yeah, they should have lost to all those teams as of right now. So it's been a very nice season. 13-4, 3-3 in the conference. The key is unlocking the best rotation and finding the best fits for late in game situations, and really to get you through those dog days of the Big Ten, because they're coming. I mean, you look at the schedule, you look coming up. You got Rutgers tomorrow, which I say this, they should win. If they lost, I would not be surprised. They're a 3-point favorite. They should win that game. Then you got Penn State Saturday, then Purdue at home, Penn State and Purdue at home Saturday, and then next week, and then Penn State's back on the road to Penn State, and then you get into February, and February there's some stretches there where, boy, it looked a lot worse. Actually, wow, looking at the schedule, Minnesota, Maryland, Nebraska, and Michigan. They're better than those. They won't win all 4. I'm sure. I mean, Big Ten tells you they'd probably lose one of those games, but God, they could win all those games. Michigan State. I got to say, actually, it's interesting looking at the schedule. It's pretty light down the stretch for the Big Ten. I mean, let's run through it quickly. At Rutgers, Penn State at home, Purdue at home. Okay, that's your toughest probably. At Penn State, at Ohio State, Minnesota, at Maryland, Nebraska, Michigan, who you get twice, who's not very good. Michigan State's at Carver, at Nebraska. You close at Illinois. Wow. There is an opportunity there to really rack up some nice wins. And they're not going to win all those games, and there'll be a loss there. It'll scratch your head, but there should be 1 or 2 or 3 that are really nice. Man, there is a lot of potential there to maybe even jump in the top 4 just schedule wise in the Big Ten. That's something to keep an eye on. But right now they're 3-3 in the Big Ten, 2 games out. Again, this is not a team I'm expecting to challenge for the conference title. Stranger things have happened. They might be better than that Wisconsin team that won the Big Ten 2 years ago, though. How they were favored at ISU. I remember that. I don't know. Iowa State's cooled down, but Iowa State was like running around whacking like really good teams. Like it wasn't even they had beaten number 9 Memphis. They just went to Creighton and took them out. They beat Xavier, and Iowa walks in there and was favored by, it felt like, I think it was quite a bit too. It was really weird. But it showed they shouldn't have been favored. Boy, I was there. That was an ugly game. And I left early again. I couldn't, it was so bad. But 5 minutes left. I had enough, tapped out. So Iowa, let's see. Iowa plays Rutgers Wednesday. So that's tomorrow. And then Penn State Saturday. And then they are off until, I think it's 5 days. And then they host Purdue on the 27th at Carver. So we will be back. Let's see. I'll be back next Tuesday, same time, 7 Central, following the Rutgers and Penn State games. Hopefully they are Iowa's 15-4, 5-3 in the Big Ten. I mean, that would be very, very good from what we maybe thought this team was going to be at the beginning of the year. I wasn't really sure. I mean, we thought Michigan would be much better. Thought Maryland would be much better, but Iowa's clearly better than those teams, and those should be wins. They get Maryland and Michigan 3 more times. They get Northwestern. They get Nebraska. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to rack up more wins. And again, not a bad loss. And the loss at Rutgers we might think it's bad. They're favored. That would not be a bad loss for a tournament wise. Penn State at home on Saturday, that would probably be a bad loss. You got to win that game. Because still, there's no margin for error yet. Or still, there's no margin for error. They don't have a quad 1 win. The win at Minnesota was their only road win. Oh no, Virginia was not very good, but 2 road wins, not bad. A lot of opportunities though. Feels like this is a tournament team. I'm fully expecting a tournament appearance. Easily a top half of the Big Ten finish. They've been great this season from what I thought. Keegan's been great. And the key is going to be finding the rotation. Very fascinating to see tomorrow who steps up. It's very fun because you had Chris Murray stepping up. We had Joe T making the big shot at Virginia. Fast forward, you got Chris Murray stepping up against Indiana. Then you got Philip Rebracha, who just went off against Minnesota, which was fantastic to see, along with Keegan going off. It's a mixed bag, and in a good way. It could be anyone. And riding the hot hand. And it's great to have all those options coming off the bench. It is a good thing, as frustrating as it can be to not have Joe T out there. It's great to have that option. And then that's not to mention the McCaffreys, and Connor didn't play on Sunday, but Patrick McCaffrey gave them good minutes. I think he played over 30 minutes. Yeah, he had 12 points. We forget about them. So they have a lot of options, and sometimes that can hurt you. You're trying to feed too many mouths. The good thing is, outside of Keegan Murray, everyone else is just sort of rotational, I guess is the right word. And so there's a lot of opportunity, and I think they're going to ride the hot hand. But again, late in games, Keegan has to have the ball. And that'll drive me nuts. That's really the thing that'll drive me nuts with this team. If they didn't make the tournament now, I would be very disappointed, outside barring injury. But if they're losing games and Keegan's not touching it at the end, I can't accept that. Hasn't happened yet. And hopefully they get Rutgers tomorrow. And then Penn State Saturday. I'll be in Iowa City for the Penn State game, weather permitting, in Des Moines. I can't wait to get back there. Love going to games at Carver. And then I will be back on next Tuesday with another 50 minutes to an hour show. Remember, follow us at the bottom of YouTube. Hit subscribe. Every Tuesday, I'm on at 7. Tom Clos. You can find me at Classy Hawkeye on Twitter. Adam Jacobi will be on tomorrow. Probably, I believe he'll be on tomorrow. Before the Iowa game, I'm quite confident he'll be on either before or after. So check for that. We'll tweet about it. And follow us up on Facebook at Iowa Sports Review, Twitter, IA Sports Review, and look for my work at Go Iowa Awesome, right under the moniker Classy Hawkeye. Historical piece, just kind of few and far between during basketball season, because football, we put so much into that. So I'll pick and choose where to insert some articles, but look for my stuff there. And I will be on next Tuesday, same time, same place, 7 Central. And let's put a bow on that. And hopefully by the time 7 days pass, after 2 Hawkeye wins, we can stop with the Vanessa Miller Gazette story. Although it's funny, Vanessa Miller is getting blasted, and fine. The other guy, there was another guy that co-signed the article. I haven't seen anything with him. John, is it Stepp? Or I don't want to get people in trouble. It's just funny how I think because Vanessa responded. But I hope that story just goes away soon. And yeah, let's leave it at that. I will see you next week after 2 Hawkeye victories, hopefully. And go Hawks. This has been a great hour of talk. We'll see you next week.